Say what you will about H.P. Lovecraft, but the man knew his horror. Why else would literature carve out an entire subgenre dedicated to his style of writing? The father of the Cthulhu Mythos, H.P. Lovecraft introduced the world to cosmic horror through stories of madness, fear, forbidden knowledge, the unknown, the inevitable, and non-human entities. The works of Lovecraft have seen a lot of different iterations, from movies to TV shows, but arguably one of the best retellings of his work is Marvel's haunt of horror, Lovecraft, Richard Corben's comic adaptation of some of Lovecraft's works. These tales will fill you with a sense of awe, fear, and absolute despair, so let's get right into it. The Mysteries of the Sea. In our first story, an adaptation of Lovecraft's short story Dagon, our narrator writes out his experiences in a dingy hotel room. He's run out of the drugs that helped him remain somewhat sane, and now the only way he can attain peace is to jump out the window of his room, but before he does that, he feels the need to write a warning for humanity. The narrator's story began 3 months ago when he was on a tanker in the South Pacific doing some marine research. The tanker was attacked by a German sea raider and destroyed. Although he managed to get on a lifeboat, some debris struck him down, and when he woke up, he found 2 surly seamen rowing the boat. The men found his knowledge of marine science useless in helping them survive, and were worried he was taking up a lot of space and resources. The narrator tried to talk some sense into them and asked them to stop rowing, as they had better chances of being picked up if they were near the crash site. The surly men didn't want to take orders from him, so they threw him out of the boat, quite literally. The narrator pleaded with them to stay, but they rowed away. After swimming for quite a while, he grew extremely tired and unable to stay afloat. He closed his eyes and welcomed the watery death that awaited him. As luck would have it, our narrator didn't die. He woke up in the boat once again as if he had just had a dream. He was alone in the boat with no sign of the surly men. The torrential rain dwindled what little hope he had left, and he wondered if he was fated to die alone. Once again, the narrator closed his eyes to welcome death, and once again, he woke up still alive. This time, the ship had beached on a weird shore where the land was covered in pebbles and weird bones. The narrator's eyes fell on a large edifice at a distance, and he began to move towards it, hoping to find someone there. He noticed that no evidence of nature was visible, and as he reached the edifice, he realized it was a large structure covered with pictographic carvings. One thing was for certain though, whatever this thing was, it was worshipped by skillful and intelligent creatures. The sounds of loud drums scared the narrator, and he hid behind the structure. What he saw next chilled him to the bone. It was a procession of anthropomorphic sea creatures who had brought sacrifices to the structure. The sacrifices were heaped in front of the structure, and amidst all the dead fish, the narrator notices the dead bodies of the 2 surly men. The semi-human creatures begin to dance, flopping and undulating, which disgusted the narrator, and he hadn't even seen the worst this island had to offer. The hybrid creatures stopped dancing and looked up at the structure as a gigantic octopus began to descend down. As the sea god ate its sacrifices, torrential rain began to fall. Desperate to save his life, the narrator ran back to the boat in a panic. He didn't remember anything between then and finding himself in a San Francisco hospital. He tried to tell the people there about everything he saw, but nobody believed him. The more he insisted, the more they thought he was insane, and soon he found himself thrown into a padded room with a straitjacket. He managed to escape though, and took up room in the hotel, and that's where we find him now. He wonders why they didn't just kill him on the island that day, and suddenly he hears a loud knock at the door. The door breaks, and a webbed hand reaches in. The narrator, determined not to be taken alive, jumps out the window. Find me! An old man wanders through a foggy meadow. He has a limp, and a scar runs from his forehead to his cheek, robbing him of his left eye. He limps along painfully, trying to find a way out when he found a child lost in the meadows as well. As it was getting dark, the 2 lit a stick on fire, exhausting the old man's matches, and they walk along to find a path out. Their luckless pursuit is interrupted by the loud footfalls of something inhuman. The old man decided to sit down around the makeshift torch, as the fire would save them both. The boy, however, took the torch and ran, despite the old man begging him not to do so, as he couldn't keep up. As the boy ran, he heard the desperate pleas of the old man, but the boy didn't stop, as he didn't care for the man's plight. Eventually, he heard the old man let out a blood-curdling scream, but the boy remained unbothered. Soon, he came across a strange altar and climbed up its steps. When he heard the approaching footfalls, he got off the altar, wondering what was causing the sound. Weird, otherworldly creatures began surrounding the altar, while the boy hid from a safe distance. The strange creatures, Yugoth, looked like walking trees. One of them caught the boy and pulled him, but dropped him as soon as the ceremony started at the altar. The boy attacked the creature with his torch, and it burst into flames. On the altar, the old man screamed for help, begging the boy to come wave the torch around. The boy knew he could do it, but decided to save himself instead and ran. As the old man let out one last scream, the boy burst into tears, apologizing for not saving him. As he walked away, his foot got caught in a thick braid of plants, and he tripped into a sharp twig, losing his left eye. As he limped away from that horrific injury, the boy realized too late that he was the old man. This horrifying tale of betrayal was inspired by Lovecraft's poem, Recognition. Carried through generations. A mystery had brought Jack to the top of the mountain where his father had disappeared. That place was where his grandfather, too, had disappeared before his father, creating a mystery that haunted the family for generations. Jack examined the area, while his hiking companion Yagar left to set up a nearby camp. The glint of metal catches Jack's eye, and he picks it up. It was a circular brooch that looked strangely familiar. As he held it, vivid and intense visions clouded his eyes, and he relived something that happened thousands of years ago. He was a commander under the king, sent to clear an area of rebels. The advanced patrols had made a mistake, though, as the people there weren't armed rebels, but nomads consisting mostly of women and children. The soldiers, thirsting for the glory of battle, didn't realize that they were fighting against desperate old men and a horde of crying children. The commander defended himself, saying he had no choice against the brats and the maniacal women, but he killed them all gleefully. Hoping to keep the news out of the king's ears, he burnt the bodies, but while the rampage was going on, 2 spearmen brought him a witch. A medallion, the same one that Jack found, hung from her neck. She swore that her mistress, Shub-Niggurath, would take him for his wicked deeds and his children and his children's children. As she went on, the commander drove his sword through her throat and killed her. He took the medallion from her neck and was examining it when he suddenly burst into flames. In the present, Jack drops the medallion, horrified by the realistic vision. Yagar stood up and approached Jack without a word. Yagar removed his hood and revealed the face of the witch who repeated the curse. Jack let out a startled "No!" and burst into flames, reduced to nothing but ash in a matter of seconds. Meanwhile, the real Yagar turned around to ask Jack for help and saw that he had completely vanished, just like his father and his father's father. This generational tale of curses is a retelling of a memory. The powers of music. Our next otherworldly tale is titled The Music of Erich Zann, which begins with our narrator, Charles Randolph, a broke student studying metaphysics at the university, trying to find cheap lodgings. He wanders into Rue d'Ossel, a house that the narrator can no longer find. An old man had met him and offered him an apartment on the 5th floor. All he had to do was pay on time and not disturb the other tenants. His nearest neighbor was Erich Zann, a mute musician on the top floor. That night, strange music flooded Charles's room, and he was mesmerized by its hypnotic alien quality. The next night, Charles approached Zann and requested to witness his music in person, as he couldn't afford to go to concerts. Erich communicated something to Charles that he didn't understand, but he took it to mean yes and followed him. The old man entertained Charles with his viola, but Charles was disappointed as he didn't get to hear the music he had heard the previous day. He requested Erich play the tune he heard yesterday and began humming it to him while opening his curtains to look at the view. Erich lunged at him in shock, shut Charles's mouth with his palm, and pushed him out the door. From that night onwards, the sound that he was once mesmerized grated against his ears like sandpaper. Charles complained to the landlord, who offered to move him down for twice his rent. Unable to afford it, Charles tried to muffle the sound using a pillow, but it was too much. He strode up to Erich's apartment to stop him, but to his shock, Erich was writhing on the floor in pain and drops of blood oozed out of his ears. The music was coming from right outside his window. As Charles neared him, Erich woke up with a start and began playing his viola to counteract the music. Unable to stop himself, Charles ripped out the curtains to see something that was imprinted on his mind forever. Weird creatures were flying around in circles, and their screams created the grating music. Fearing for his life, Charles darted out as fast as he could, tripping and stumbling down the stairs. When he finally made it out, he looked up and saw that there was nothing in the sky. It was quiet, peaceful, and empty, except for the moon and the stars. But Charles would never be the same. Broken promises and dreams. In our next story, which is inspired by the short story The Canal, a love-struck woman dreams of meeting her amour, Jackson, and greeting him with a passionate kiss. But the droplets of rain trickling in through the roof wake her up from the dream. She covered herself with a jacket and ran through the rain as she knew Jackson would be waiting for her. Together, they planned to get out of the terrible place they were in. As she ran past, she saw a man caught in the storm drain of a canal, but before she could decide to help him, he was sucked in. Unbothered, the woman continued, walking through unfamiliar roads but knowing she was on the right path as long as she was following the canal. The strong rainfall was increasing the speed and strength of the current, which swept away the banks like they weighed nothing. As she walked through the road, she saw the sides littered by corpses. She wondered what happened that killed all the people, but her focus was on finding Jackson and nothing else. She saw Jackson sitting silently, almost trance-like, against the wall of an abandoned building. She apologized for being late and assured him that everything would be all right as they were together now. Jackson didn't acknowledge her and kept sitting with the same serene expression on his face. She grabbed him and shook him, hoping he would snap out of whatever trance he was in when the wall behind him began to crumble. It buried them both, and soon all the buildings there crumbled down into the canal, allowing clear water to flow. An Egyptian Tale. An adaptation of The Lamp, this tale begins in Egypt, where a group of archaeologists consisting of Professor Williams, David, Mark, Annie, and Hassan study things inside a pyramid. David yells out for the others when he finds something exciting. The group wanders down to where David's voice came from, carefully avoiding the traps set for tomb raiders. Before they find him, they hear his scream of pain. As Professor Williams leads them on, they realize David had broken through a wall and cut through a seal, all indications of his unprofessional behavior. They enter a dark room that's filled with the stench of something rotten and long dead. Annie lets the group know she heard something, but they continue ignoring her. As their steps crunch onto something, the group notices the floor is covered with skeletons that they've been stepping on. They notice the pillars covered with hieroglyphs and wonder what it all means. They have no time to decipher it though, as their eyes fall on a lamp on the stone table that's still smoking. Mark grabs the lamp to study it closely, but Hassan stops him, telling him it's very bad. Close by, they see the mangled corpse of David. Without any warning, Hassan is pulled upwards and his ribs begin to split. Professor Williams pulls him down, asking Mark to come help him, but Mark is rooted to the spot. Once Hassan is pulled down, Professor Williams is lifted up and he crashes back down again lifeless. Mark and Annie run out, scared about whatever invisible creature killed their friends. As they exit the tunnels, they see the camps have been cleared out and the workers have left. Annie asks Mark to go back for the others, but Mark refuses to face whatever was hiding in the shadows of the sealed room. In their hurry, Mark had not noticed that he had brought the lamp outside with him. He had deciphered the hieroglyphics warning him of something, but he wasn't able to read it entirely. Annie wonders what creature could have stayed alive in a tomb sealed for over 4,000 years. While they speak, the creature in question makes its way out, just like Mark and Annie did. Meanwhile, Mark lights the lamp, and suddenly, their tent rips open. Something grabs Annie, and she's lifted up as she screams for help. The lamp flashes on brightly, and Mark sees a gigantic spider-like creature ripping Annie to shreds. The only sound that echoes across the desert dunes is the screaming of the two unfortunate humans. When help arrives the next day, they find neither the bodies in the tomb nor the ones at camp. What they do find is a curiously bricked-up wall. The Tale of Jermyn House. Arthur Jermyn approached a sophisticated group of scholars in hopes of getting membership. Although his application was met with resistance, he pleaded his case be heard. Arthur began with the tale of his great-great-grandfather, Sir Wade Jermyn, an anthropologist who was one of the first explorers of the Congo region of Africa. In 1750, he began his most important expedition to the Congo, which was filled with obstacles. He lost much of his group to jungle fever and wild animals. Finally deserted by his group, he set out to finish his quest alone. After months, he reached some amazing ancient ruins populated by hybrid creatures, half ape and half human. The muscular and brutish creatures overpowered the aristocrat and took him to their leader, a female of the species who was worshipped as a goddess. Wade expected to be executed, but the tribe accepted him and he was allowed to live among them. He soon began his study of their ways and filled his journal with the tribal ceremonies and customs. After nearly a year of spending time with the apes, he returned to civilization with a wife, the daughter of a Portuguese trader he met in Africa. When he reported his findings, many believed Wade to have gone insane. Wade was disappointed by his fellow Englishmen and grew disillusioned while his wife didn't care about English culture. Together, they lived in seclusion in their lonely family estate. They had a son together and took another trip to Africa, but when he returned, Sir Wade returned alone. Arthur concluded his report, saying he had published several articles supporting Sir Wade's research and attacking Huxley and Darwin's theories. Sir Philip, an eminent member of the group, reminded Arthur of the unsavory parts of his heritage. Sir Wade had been deserted by his wife in Africa and committed to an institution in his later years. Wade's son Philip was a brute who raped a woman and fled, while his grandson Robert went on a homicidal rampage, killing several members of his own family, including Neville, his son. Arthur punched Philip in the face for disrespecting his family, and the other scholars pulled him off Philip. Arthur asked the group to ignore the black sheep in the Jermyn family and concentrate on his efforts, which included publishing articles on anthropology and pacifist poetry. Finally, he pulled out a crate that arrived from Africa as final proof of Wade Jermyn's discovery. The crate contained the mummy of a semi-human ape woman who had a birthmark exactly like that of Arthur. Around her neck, they found a medallion containing the Jermyn monogram. Arthur immediately put two and two together and realized Sir Wade's Portuguese wife was the female hybrid he had met in the Congo. The realization that he was the descendant of semi-human apes drove the scholar insane, and he rushed out into the courtyard and set himself on fire. If you enjoyed that tale, we urge you to read H.P. Lovecraft's original short story, Facts Concerning the Late Arthur Jermyn and His Family. The story builds up to the revelation well, and there are tales from the Congo that speak of their local goddess being charmed away by a white god and her returning to them after she bore him a son. Their lineage is explored well too, with each generation of the Jermyns exhibiting animal-like behavior given their ancestry. What hides in The Well? Will Gobber is smoking his pipe outside when he sees Ebenezer, a neighbor of the Atwoods, running away in fear, claiming that something came up from below, but he wouldn't let it catch him. Will's wife asks him to go check out what might have happened, and Will agrees to go after supper with his friend Zach. They find Seth Atwood dead in his house, having hacked up himself, and his wife missing. As they look around, Will notices their well is bricked up. They call the sheriff, who shows up and arrests Ebenezer for murder. Something about the whole ordeal doesn't sit right with Will, and he goes back once Seth's funeral is all done. He opens up the well and sees that it's been deepened, with handholds going down as far as the eye can see. He decides to check out the shack for any clues, and inside the family Bible, he finds the last letter Seth ever wrote. Seth begins telling the reader that the day he decided to deepen the well had been evil. Ebenezer had helped him with the job while his wife Elmira watched from the stairs. Seth was unhappy with Elmira as she would flirt with every man except him. When they had dug to some extent, they saw that the well opened up and revealed handholds that went extremely deep. Seth didn't know what to do about it and decided to figure it out later as he dragged Elmira into the house with him. That night, Elmira woke up, claiming to have heard something, a strange whistling that pulled at her. Seth asked her to go to sleep and ignored her. When he woke up the next morning, Elmira was gone. He ordered Ebenezer to tell him where his wife was, but Eb had no idea either. Together, they found her footsteps leading into the well. Eb thought she might have fallen down and suggested leaving her there, but Seth couldn't just forget his wife, so he climbed down, but had to come back up again as he couldn't breathe. Eb suggested covering it up, but Seth believed she'd come back. Together, the two waited outside the well the entire day. As dark overtook them, Elmira climbed out of the well naked. She called for both Seth and Eb to come and help her. Seth was angry she called out for Ebenezer, but he helped her anyways. He put Eb's shirt on her and asked her what was wrong, but immediately she was pulled back into the well. Elmira grabbed onto the floor and begged them to help her, but whatever was dragging her was pretty fast and strong. Eb ran away screaming, but Seth knew what he had to do. He closed the well brick by brick, wrote the letter, and killed himself. Back in the present, the sun had just gone down, and as Will finishes reading the letter, a voice calls out from the well, addressing him by name and begging for his help. The window and its attraction. Our narrator, a man plagued by mystery, returns to his home after 25 years. The house had a secret that had changed his life forever, and now he believed it was time to discover the truth. That night, weird sounds called to him from the window that had been walled up. As he walked to the walled window, he was not so frightened. He remembered the last time he saw it. He had been a child of 5 or 6 years. Whatever was in the window had enchanted him, but he couldn't go there as his parents had pulled him back. They had disappeared through the window, and his awe had changed to fear in a matter of seconds. He had been taken away to live with distant relatives, and now he would know the truth once and for all. He had the wall taken down the very next morning, asking the workers to be careful as his parents might still be there. As part of the wall gave way, the workers' tools were sucked out and they ran away in terror. The narrator watched with wide open eyes as he saw what happened to his parents. He too was sucked in soon after, and he was glad to join them for eternity as the wall opened up to a vast, dark, endless space. If you love tales of the unknown and comic books, this is a perfect read for you. It also has the full text of H.P. Lovecraft's original works right after the comic, so you can read it and come up with your own interpretation. The comic book isn't just Lovecraft illustrated, it also has the genius and originality of Richard Corben as well. For instance, The Canal is a standard poem, but in Corben's mind, new characters are born and it takes on the life of a tragic love story. My favorite in this series was Recognition. While reading the poem, I had always assumed that the man being tortured and eaten by the creatures of the forest was so in awe, surprised, and overcome by the sight of these creatures that he had an out-of-body experience. He didn't even feel the pain and terror of being eaten until it was too late, as he was busy taking in the horrific scene in front of him. But in Corben's comic, the narrative grows wings. It's about how the inability to help someone translates into the inability to help yourself. It's a story of regret, missed opportunities, selfishness, and late realizations, the last of which is the only one the comic shares with the poem. We loved them all, but I've got to say, the Arthur Jermyn story could have been explored more in depth. That's a tiny gripe though, and other than that, we feel Haunts of Horror is a must-read. Go check it out and let us know what you think about it. Let us know your favorite Lovecraft stories in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and ring that bell icon so we know to make more content like this. We'll soon be back, but until then, thanks for watching. Stay safe out there.